Well, I find Hans Rosling to be very entertaining. I really enjoy listening to him. So, but let's take a look at the data set and the chart that and the graph that he was using a little more closely, and just see how the animation fits in and how it's actually showing us so many variables at once. So the two obvious variables are what are on the axes. So we've got national income on the horizontal axis and average life expectancy on the vertical axis. So there's two variables right there. So we could just put a dot for each country, and that would be a scatter plot. But look at what else they did. They also included population with the size of the bubble. So the bigger bubbles, like China, that represents a country with a large population, and smaller bubbles, like what do we got here? Turkey represents a smaller population. In addition, we've got colors. We're using color to represent region. So China is in Asia, whereas when I flipped over here, France is in Europe, as is Turkey, which is the smaller one that I looked at before, Spain. Right? So, and you can see over here on the right, you can see Asia is the pink, yellow is Europe and Russia, blue is Africa, and green is the Americas. That was how they divided that up. So we've already got four variables here, right? Through the size of the bubble and the color of the bubble gives us two additional variables beyond the axes. And finally, the animation allows us to bring in a fifth variable, time. In addition, we can consider country a variable because if we click on the bubble, each individual bubble represents a country. So there's really 6 variables here. And you can watch as these variables change over time. Of course, the colors aren't going to change, but the dots are going to change. And as you saw in the last video, you can see major events causing major changes. Let's take a look, just take a look at China. So I'm going to select over here on this website, I can select only China. China. And we can watch China specifically over time. So let's go back a little bit because something funky happened with China. Right? So here we are, it's kind of moving around left and right. The population doesn't seem to be changing much. It took a dip during the wars. Well, watch this. Ooh, look at that dip. Did you see what happened? This is in the late 60s and early 70s. So let's watch it again. Late 60s, early 70s, we see income is okay, but the life expectancy drops. Then we saw China take a turn to the left so that in addition to life expectancy dropping, income also dropped. What was happening in China at that time? Well, I don't know if how much you talked about this in history, but that was the time of the Cultural Revolution, which was a time of lots of chaos and a lot of state-sponsored murder. It was one of the worst periods of Mao's reign. And now we can watch what happens as we recover. China recovers from the Cultural Revolution. And now as you're watching both income and life expectancy rise, you see China moving into a position as we come into the 21st century of a superpower. Let's watch that happen. There it is in the 90s. Right? You see the income rising, life expectancy rising as China becomes one of the major dominant countries of the 21st century. Here's the point I want you to take. We are actually looking at 6 different variables in this one graph. Some of the variables come through playing two of the variables come from the axes. Another 3 variables come from the bubbles themselves. We can add color, size, and labels. And then finally, the last variable comes from animation. In the final video in this section, we're going to take a look at spatial data and how we can use space to represent a different variable.